Hello everyone, Denise here. Today we are going to be making the Spiffy mandala wall hanging. You can use absolutely any yarn you wish with any hook you wish. Today I am using this Mandala Baby yarn. It is 490 yards for this cake, and I did not use the whole thing for the project that I made. I'm also using an H hook, some scissors, and something to weave in the ends, and then also not pictured here, I got a hula hoop from the Dollar Tree store. So let's get started. So I'm going to do the magic ring method. You can do a chain 4 and begin with a loop that way. I am going to go ahead and make the magic circle. This is how I do my magic circle. And then I want to define the stitches that we're going to do in this project. The beginning granny cluster is going to be a chain 3 and then 2 double crochets and a chain 1. That's your beginning granny cluster. A regular cluster is going to just be 3 double crochets and then a chain 1. So we need, in total, around the circle, we need 5 of the clusters. One will be the beginning cluster and the other 4 will be regular clusters. So at the end of our round 1, we have 5 granny clusters, and we are going to slip stitch over to the first chain 1 space. And then we are going to, in that chain 1 space, we are going to do a beginning cluster, which is a chain 3, and then 2 more double crochets in that same space. And then we need to chain 1 after our double crochets, and then we are going to put 3 double crochets in the next stitch, and that is a regular granny cluster. Then we are going to chain 1. We always want to chain 1 in between, and then we are going to do 3 more double crochets in that same space, and this is going to be increasing all the way around. We're going to do 2 granny clusters in each chain 1 space all the way around. And then once we get to that beginning area where we started with our chain 3, we are going to put 3 double crochets in the very same space that we started with our chain 3. And then we're going to put a chain 1 and slip stitch to the top of our beginning chain 3. And once we get to the end of our round 2, at the end of round 2 we will have 10 granny clusters and we will have 10 chain 1 spaces. So looking at our round 2 here, we have 10 of our granny stitch clusters and 10 chain 1 spaces. So now we need to go on to round 3. So here we are at the end of round 2, moving on to round 3. We need to slip stitch over to our first chain 1 space here. In our chain 1 space, we will chain 3 and put 2 double crochet in that same stitch. That's our beginning granny cluster. Chain 1 and then put another granny cluster in that same space, which is 3 double crochets and a chain 1. In our next space, we are going to do a granny cluster. So we will be doing 3 double crochets, chain 1 in that chain 1 space. And then in our next chain 1 space, we are going to be putting our increase. So 2 granny clusters go in that stitch. So 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1. So that is going to be our increase for round 3. We are going to be increasing just like we increase on a hat. We are going to have 2 granny clusters in one chain 1 space, and then 1 granny cluster in the next chain 1 space. going to do that all the way around for round 3. At the end of round 3, we will have 15 granny clusters and 15 chain 1 spaces. And I will meet up with you at the end of round 3 in just a minute. So here we are at the end of our round 3. We are going to start round 4. We need to slip stitch to get to our first chain 1 space, just like we've been doing. And then we are going to do a beginning cluster, which is a chain 3, and then 2 double crochets in that same space. Chain 1. And then we are going to put a granny cluster in the next chain 1 space, so 3 double crochets and a chain 1. In the next space, we are going to do 2 granny clusters. So this is going to be our increase for round 4. At the end of round 4, we will have 20 granny clusters and 20 chain 1 spaces. I will meet up with you once we get all the way around. Okay, so at the end of round 4 here, we have our increase. We have 2 of the single clusters and then an increase all the way around. And at the end of round 4, we have 1 more space left, and that needs to be an increase. Right there on that stitch, that chain 1 space. So we're going to go ahead and put our increase in this last space here. So that is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and chain 1. And then we are going to slip stitch to the top of our beginning chain 3. And now we need to move on to round 5. Round 5 is going to be another increase round. We are going to slip stitch to the beginning chain 1 space here, And then in this round, we are going to increase every 3 granny clusters that we put in. So we are following our pattern just like if it was a hat. We are going to do the beginning granny cluster in this first chain 1 space, chain 1. In the next stitch, we are going to do 1 granny cluster. In the next chain 1 space, we are going to do another granny cluster. That gives us 3 granny clusters in each of these 3 chain 1 spaces, and then we will increase. We will do 2 granny clusters in the next. So it will be granny cluster, granny cluster, granny cluster, 2 granny clusters, just like as if we were increasing for a hat. And we are going to keep doing that all the way around for round 5. At the end of round 5, we are going to be having 25 granny clusters and 25 chain 1 spaces. So just keep doing that all the way around for round 5, and I will meet up with you at the end of round 5. So moving on for round 6, we are going to keep increasing just like we have been. We are going to slip stitch over to our chain 1 space every round. And then we are going to do our beginning chain cluster in that first chain 1 space, a granny cluster in the next space, a granny cluster in the next space, granny cluster in the next space, and then an increase. And you will always have an increase 1 spot after your previous round's increase. So just keep increasing until you get your mandala the size of your hula hoop, like this. And then all I did was I chained a really long foundation chain that would fit all the way around my hula so that I could take this long chain and weave it into the edge round of the mandala. And all I did was take it and weave it in and out just like this. So I just weave this long chain in between each of the cluster stitches on the edge round of the mandala, and to put it on the hula, I just lay it down and then I go ahead and wrap the edge around the hula and start cinching like this. Once you cinch it a little bit, it will stay on, and then I just tie a bow to secure it to the hula hoop. And then I go ahead and I tuck my ends in so that you can't see them. And then I hang it up on the wall with a coffee cup hook, which you can buy anywhere. And here is my spiffy mandala wall hanging all finished. And here is mine hanging outside on our fence. I really enjoyed making this mandala wall hanging. I also think that it would make a beautiful dream catcher too if you wanted to do that. I think it would be gorgeous and an all solid color, say a white or a light blue or whatever color you desire. I think it would be pretty no matter what colors you choose because of the swirl effect that you get in the middle of this with the increases. I think it's gorgeous. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, guys. Bye.